Hello, everybody, and welcome to CW Live. My name's Chris Webb, Head of Communications at the CW. I'm not on camera because we've got some technical issues with the comms department, but hopefully you can hear me. You can see, I'm sure, Martin Walsh, our Deputy General Secretary, Postal. Martin has been on the case. He's only been in post a week, but he's on our case already, saying he wants to get out and he wants to speak to the members. He wants to hear from you on a far more regular basis than we've been doing. So I think, you'd all appreciate that. So evening to you, Martin, or afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, good to have you with us, mate. So you've been a busy man. Through the course of this, we'll talk about some of that. We don't plan for these updates to be sort of war and peace and really, really long, but a snippet of what's going on and what the union are doing to try to resolve the numerous issues we have across Royal Mail Group. So I guess if I can start, Martin, I think a good place to start would be that the feeling out there, which I'm seeing, from the members, who are saying, good to see you're active, good to see you're out and about, and you're organising. They've seen the postal executives meeting more regularly. They've seen the divisional reps and the field officials are going to be met. They've seen the discussion documents that you want to produce in the strategy. But I guess they're saying, yeah, but right now we're getting battered in the workplace. What's the union doing right now? So there's a starting point for your mind.
Okay, look, I totally understand what's happening in delivery units and mail centres right across the UK. During my campaign, I visited over 20 odd delivery units, 18 different branches, and in all parts of the UK. And I can see how our members are suffering. Quality service disaster, which is happening more and often accompanied with failed imposed revisions and threats of further revisions. And we need to resolve that. And certainly the conversations I've had this week, where, clearly I want a chance to pause on revisions to allow us to get into some of the issues and try and resolve quality of service. We also have been discussing, how do we reconnect in the workplace? How do we, as a union, make sure we get into every workplace in the country over a period of time? And a document we're taking to both PE and the field officials is, I would like that each postal executive member, each officer, each divisional rep commits in the new year to go into 3 different units per month. And they can see basically the issues. They can help the branch, the local rep, resolve those issues. And we start talking around the future. And we start trying to resolve some of our members' issues. This is a company obviously in not the greatest position. It's losing mail, even though obviously it don't look like it in some delivery units. And we've got to really address the quality service crisis. We've got to deal with the USO, which is inevitable to change. And I had a meeting with Royal Mail yesterday, along with General Secretary, where Royal Mail presented, obviously their view of the change of the USO and other aspects to those changes. And we've given an invite to basically the manager who'd done that to address the postal executive on the 19th of December and show the same slideshow.
Thanks, Martin. I want to come back to you on that USO thing. I want to try and stick to the sort of the here and now just for a few minutes. I mean, Jonathan Smith says it feels like the union have abandoned us at this point. We've got another comment here saying the union's in real trouble. In fact, someone saying the union's finished. So, I mean, how do we get to this, the point where obviously, I think, when you're talking about New Year, I think some things are just practical. Some things are just going to take time. But how are the union, what would you say to our reps, to our branches out there now about the need to sort of start picking the union back up, start rebuilding the union now, alongside the work you're going to start to commence in the coming weeks?
Look, I can understand that's a feeling out there. And if, during my 39 years in Royal Mail, there's times when there's been unpopular agreements where there's been similar experiences that people saw after the way forward, one of the most unpopular agreements we've ever had, where people thought the union was finished. It wasn't finished. It continued. The struggle for workers will always continue. There will be things Royal Mail want to do in the future which have a massive impact on our members. And the only body who's going to protect our members is going to be the trade union and collective strength. I get some of our members have lost trust in the national union. When I've been visiting places, they haven't lost trust in the local rep. They haven't lost trust in the branch in the main. They've lost some trust in the national union. And we've got to rebuild it. Part of what I think we need to do is explain why we reached the agreement, why the agreement was better than the alternative, and it was. The alternative may have led to administration and 30,000 job losses, and there's reasons why we reached that agreement, but our members do not necessarily understand that. And if you were in those units which are failing and quality of service every single day is appalling, you will see and you will be quite bitter around what's happened, and you'll blame both Royal Mail and you'll blame the trade union. And we've got to get in there and resolve those issues. We've got to take a little bit of flack in those places, but explain how we're going to resolve those issues. There are significant challenges in the year ahead, whether it's a USO, whether it's further change, the later start issue, which progress is being made on. All of these issues are only going to be protected by this trade union. And we're certainly not going to go away from communicating. I've made a commitment. I'm more than happy to communicate with members. I want to get out there and communicate with members, and I want the postal executive divisional reps to do that.
Thanks, Martin. I mean, I want to move to the USO. So in a couple of segments, because as we said at the start of the show, for everyone just tuning in, Martin wants to communicate more regularly, but we don't want to be on here, every Friday evening taking up your time. But when there's something to say, we want to be out there, and we want to be being proactive and grabbing the agenda and taking it to you, involving you in the union strategies as they develop. That's what Martin, and the team have committed to. One of the things to the USO then, Martin, in two segments, actually, I want to take this on. One is the media. So we are seeing more and more people, go into the media, postal workers. We're seeing customers. We're seeing big business. I saw, there's in the ITV have ran a piece today attacking Royal Mail service. So there's a few segments to that, really. What are the union, I'd like to see yourself and Dave going to get out there in the media, firstly, and secondly, what about Royal Mail's take, where essentially they still are, even at this point, are denying that they're prioritising letters over parcels over letters, for example, like denying the reality that tens of thousands of our members are living. So a little bit before we go into the ins and outs of your meeting with them on the USO, I want to do with you a little bit about current state and, quite frankly, the lack of honesty from the company.
Yeah, look, where I see places, like I was in an office the other week where a lady was saying, I know there's a letter which is meant to be going to someone who's suffering from cancer. I can't deliver. I've got to go out and do parcels and tract. And that can't be right. And we've got to expose that, and we've got to expose the quality service disaster. What we can't support is a failing 6-day service moving to a failing 5-day service. We've got to make sure we start improving quality. You go round, Chris, in any unit which has had imposed revisions, you will see mail left in frames 2 or 3 days. Becomes almost impossible to get other mail in there. You got agency drivers taking parcels for a drive and bringing them back. We've got to restore quality service, and we've got to make sure Royal Mail address quality service. They want a change to the USO, and that may well suit us, but we've got to make sure we restore quality service in every single unit, and we start working on that in the new year.
Thanks, man. So moving on then to the USO, you've met with a company, as you said earlier on in the show, with the General Secretary Dave Ward. Obviously some of that elements may have been confidential. You've also revealed that the postal executive are going to get a presentation from the company. One of the things I think's frustrated the members is over the last few months is the USO discussion is in the agreement, the network changes and later start times is in the agreement, but we're not getting regular updates through on these things to the members. So great that you're here today, talking about the USO, for example, but I want to ask you whether you plan, you're talking about the executive, of course, hugely important that they meet in the officers and the branches, the field officials, etc. But how are you going to involve the members in the discussion on the USO? Because I can see in the comments here, we've got ranging from people saying the USO's gone to Royal Mail have already destroyed it to don't let them take it, make any changes to the USO. So there's a range of opinions out there amongst our members.
Look, in terms of USO, this is a fairly new debate with both us and Royal Mail. And some of this is in commercial confidence, so I'm not at liberty to say everything at this moment in time. But every single postal administration, some people might have seen what's happened in Australia. There's been changes in Germany recently. Belgium's gone to a 3-day USO. This is happening all around the world, and mail volumes are declining. Since 2020, basically, Royal Mail have lost equivalent of a 1.5 days of traffic. We're spreading less work over 6 days, potentially losing jobs on each of those days. So there is a compelling argument for a change. But there's a number of factors into that. Is the speediness of delivery, what happens to second class, what a range of things which need to be discussed. And ultimately, there needs to be government approval and there needs to be Ofcom regulator approval. In terms of how we communicate, I think the aim of the 19th of December and the 20th for divisional reps is we start developing a strategy which can, one, go to a national briefing, and two, go to conference and get a wider support of the membership. And that's the aim. There's some work to be done on that. This isn't going to happen overnight because I assume, if there is an election early next year, then no government will want to change the USO before that election. But clearly we've got to get into those talks, and we've got to find a solution with the company. But some of this will obviously have to remain, in commercial confidence.
Thanks, Martin. That's good stuff, and I think an update the members will appreciate. Another element I've seen in the chat, but also seen people concerned about is the later finishes. I mean, it was a hugely provocative thing for our members. We knew that, the union did that, with the flights always coming off. I think you've said this consistently, it wasn't a debate around, will they move later or won't they? It was almost a forced debate, but the union, led by, the negotiators did an excellent job to mitigate Royal Mail's original 3-hour plan. And then we came back and we put the agreement to our members on the basis that we felt we could achieve an hour maximum, in the spring of 2024. Hearing rumours that Royal Mail really aren't taking that seriously and they're pushing for 90. Members now starting to say, well, actually, this spring 24 is now around the corner. So where are we? We haven't had an update on that for a long, long time. Where are we with the later starts, finishes, network plans, and any position you might want to take on that? And I'll throw into the mix there the position that, Royal Mail, made the move, we won't do any more revisions a month or so ago. I mean, surely doing more revisions during that period would be madness as well. So throw in the mix like their revisions plan alongside their later finishes.
Okay, look, I think this is another one where we needed to explain this better during the dispute. Royal Mail were always going to serve notice on the flights. There's 18 flights. The reason being three main reasons. They're very costly, more costly, 10 times more costly than rail and road. Two, basically they don't own this, the ability to lay on more flights. So during peak and other heavier times in the year, they fail quality because they can't put those items on the plane. And the third is more and more companies are demanding Royal Mail don't fly their traffic because of the CO2 emission reduction. They were always going to serve notice on flights. Once you serve notice on the air flights, you cannot deliver the USO at the current start times and finishing times. And what Royal Mail originally wanted was up to 3 hours later. And this isn't unusual because in 2018, they proposed exactly the same, a 9 to 5 delivery window. As part of the agreement, we've got a statement which says it should be up to 60 minutes with a default of 90 minutes. And there's been a lot of good work by Mark Walsh, David Robinson, Tony Bush, in terms of trying to minimise that. And lots of national and joint working groups, local working groups, have been trying to minimise it. There is on the 18th of December a final cut from mail centres, which will determine how many units are less than 60 minutes and how many are potentially 90 minutes. There has been a move in terms. The original proposal was, the exemption notice start and finishing times would come out before Christmas. That's no longer the case. It's going to be in the new year, and there's further talks going on this. We are very confident the vast majority of units will be less than 60 minutes, but further work needs to be done on that, Chris. And my fellow officers, along with PE members, along with the joint local working groups everywhere, are working to try and restrict it to up to 60 minutes. I think that's important because I do believe when everyone gets 3 months' notice of their start and finishing times, unless it's acceptable, there will be a lot of exemptions. So I think it's down to both Royal Mail and the union to try and mitigate that change. But the truth is, once you come off flights, that does mean the mail will be arriving later into delivery units. And with no change to the USO, that does mean an impact on current start and finishing times.
Is it realistic, Martin, for that to be that body of work you've just described there, which sounds really detailed and necessary, to be completed by the end of March?
I think it is, Chris. I think it's a priority, and we're hoping to get a cut on the 18th of December, which then details how many units across the country has basically less than 60 minutes. And this is, when I say less than 60 minutes, some units won't move at all. We're talking about minutes up to 60 minutes, and we're confident the vast majority will there. But there is some real impact. Scotland, where we've got to do some work to mitigate that, and some of the southwest. So there is a lot of work going on, Chris, and obviously we want to try and reduce it everywhere, and obviously we'll work with Royal Mail to do that.
Thanks, Martin. I can see your point about Scotland was very well timed there, because one of our Scottish members is saying that they're being told 90. I wanted to pick up a point that Marcus Lees is making there. He's picked up on something you said, that we're trying to mitigate it. And he says, we're trying, basically, what does trying mean? Royal Mail are going to get 90 minutes and we voted for it. I wanted to pick up the point, give you the chance really to send out a message to members that, like, us lumping each other on, like, we're never going to do this, we're never going to do that, probably is what Royal Mail, who will definitely be watching this chat as they watch all of our stuff, are going to want to see and they're going to want to hear. What they're not going to want to hear is, like, we're getting behind the union, So your view on that?
There will always be a view that is negative. I can only say to you, there are lots of people working as hard as possible. And our aim is, we're making it quite clear, we want to mitigate to less than 60 minutes. I think that the gentleman who mentioned Scotland, there is some real issues there. However, there has been a plan put forward by the divisional reps and the ROD around some further investment to try and limit 60 minutes. And I think that's been discussed. So there is a lot of work where, we're going to be held to account on this, where we want the vast majority to be up to 60 minutes. And if we can, we're going to try and improve even on that. So I know people can be negative and say, well, are you really trying? Royal Mail's going to get 90 minutes. In my time in the union, we've always tried to get the best deals possible. And yes, there's, the last deal was unpopular, but the alternative was worse. And what we've got to do is explain that. But we've got to deliver on the up to 60 agenda. And we're going to try and work on that all the way through this.
Thanks, Martin. You talked a little bit about, when we talked at the start of this episode, around the attitudes of management. When we targeted, completely rightfully the CEO during the previous CEO during the dispute, I mean, undoubted at time Simon Thompson, whether you believe he was carrying out the board's agenda or whatever, was a negative character and a hugely negative figure in the history of Royal Mail Group and our relations with them. But what he did, it seems to me, as a CEO, more than any other previous CEO, was he embedded his vision deeper in the company. The people he employed at the top, in executive positions, the regional managers, even deeper than that, this sort of like anti-union, sort of anti-worker ethos, which, let's be honest about it, you can see from the members' comments, you can see from the State of Delivery Office, exists as we're live right now. Is it your view, and I don't want to put you on the spot too much here, because I know you're trying to work and you've got to build relationships, but is it your view we need to still see more changes in that executive in the coming weeks and months if we're truly to move on to a better place?
I think, if you look at their strategy, which, obviously was part of the agreement, some of those things aren't working, are they? Delivery methods, seasonal variations isn't achieving where they want to get to. You've got new entrants leaving at a massive rate. There are a number of things which the Royal Mail executive thought would bring in quite a lot of money. Hasn't worked. There needs to be some fresh thinking. This union and Royal Mail need to work together to restore morale. Anyone who goes round will see you can't get worse morale. And I've always said, no business survives if it's lost the trust of the workforce. And this union needs to regain some of the trust in the workplace. And the only way we're going to do that is make our members' lives better. And Royal Mail needs to make their employees' lives better. The amount of people who say to me they dread coming into work, especially after a rest day, because their walk hasn't gone out and they're coming into 2 days' work, is massive. That can't be right for any successful company. And we've got to work through that. And I do think, some of those managers who were involved in the dispute can't win the peace. And we do need fresh thinking. And we do need to work with Royal Mail in a better way, but they've got to start addressing some of our issues. And they've got to address the quality service crisis and their members' concerns around some of the issues in the workplace.
Spot on, Martin. Thank you. Just a couple of quick ones then. The Falconer review, Lord Falconer review. So, major in amongst a pool of hugely difficult circumstances, a huge win for the union just a few weeks ago. But people who want to come back to work, or people who want their settlements, etc., still waiting a little bit, because the union is taking a collective approach. We're getting nearer and nearer Christmas. Any news for those groups of our members and representatives?
To be fair, there's been a massive amount of work by both Dave Ward, and Andy Fury, Dave Wiltshire, Rob Weatherspoon, to try and get and other staff to try and get these things processed. Without doubt, it's a massive result to get those individuals justice, and that's one of the reasons why the agreement was so important for those individuals. We've now got to obviously resolve it. It's very time consuming to get all the processes in for those people who want to return to Royal Mail, and those people who want to obviously leave the company. So that work is currently still going on in the office next door to me, and some really good work going on. Hopefully, by close of play today, we would have resolved the vast majority of them.
That's great to hear, Martin. As I said, and the members, I suppose we're about 26 minutes in now. We don't want to be, downloading your Friday evenings, and when many of you, like Martin and I and others, will be in work tomorrow morning trying to crack on with everything we've got to do. But give you a chance, Martin. Well, we'll be speaking next week, I assume, or we'll be getting more and more messages out there as hopefully things start to develop, and you set up meetings and you have meetings with the employer more regularly. But is there any final message you want to deliver to the members at the end of your first week in office? You've been in. I've seen you in work in headquarters every single day this week. You've been really, really busy. You've hit the ground running. I think that's fair to say. Any final reflections from you?
Yeah, what I would say, Chris, is I understand people's frustrations, concern, but I stood on a platform for change. I stood on a platform to reconnect with members, and I stood on a platform that we got resolved some of the problems. That isn't going to happen overnight, but we've set in a number of processes to start doing that, and also meeting with Royal Mail. So I will be held to account for how you see I get on over the next month or two. But we're determined to ensure, one, we reconnect in the workplace. We explain why the agreement was better than the alternative. But more importantly, we start addressing some of your issues in the workplace and some of your concerns. And we will communicate that. This union ain't going missing. And I certainly won't be going missing.
Thank you, Martin. So thanks for your time, first of all. I know you're busy. I know you've got more meetings this evening before you get off. But more importantly, the Martin, as we always say, is thanks to you who have come on and you've put your questions and you've put your comments and you've taken the time to listen to the message from the leadership of your union. We're going to be doing this more and more regular. Going forward, we'll advertise them as well. It was just Martin had half an hour and he wanted to jump on, which is great. I'm sure you'll appreciate that. So going forward, you'll get more notice. You'll get more chance to input and to shape the sessions. But for now, take it easy, everyone, and we'll speak to you all soon.